It seemed like an ordinary day at Westmont Academy. Laughter and chatter filled the classroom, but a certain group of students had decided to test her patience. They mocked her, whispered insults, and tried to make her feel small. Then it happened. Their cruel hands tore her shirt. Laughter echoed, and the air was thick with humiliation. But what they didn't know, she wasn't just a teacher. She was a 3-time national Taekwondo champion. In an instant, the atmosphere shifted. This wasn't just about a torn shirt, it was about power, respect, and a reckoning that nobody in that room would forget. It had been another routine morning at Westmont Academy. Ms. Jackson, tall and composed, moved through the hallways with the quiet confidence of someone who had faced far bigger challenges than teenage pranks. To her students, she was strict but fair, always encouraging them to push themselves, yet there was a warmth in her eyes that few noticed at first glance. Outside the classroom, she trained daily. A disciplined regimen honed over years of dedication, hours of sweat, focus, and sheer willpower that had earned her the title of National Taekwondo Champion 3 times. Today, however, the calm of her morning was fragile. A notorious group of students, emboldened by their friends' laughter, lingered outside her classroom door. Their whispers carried just enough venom to unsettle anyone who didn't know her story. They had singled her out before, mocking her voice, her posture, her unwavering demeanor, but today they wanted more. Today they wanted to humiliate her publicly. As the students filed into class, Ms. Jackson arranged the desks, adjusted her bag, and prepared for a day of lessons. She moved with deliberate care, aware of every detail in her environment, every student's mood. But even her sharp eyes couldn't anticipate the sudden eruption of chaos. The same group who had laughed at her in the hallway closed in with smirks, and within moments, her shirt was ripped. The room erupted with cruel laughter, students pointing, jeering, oblivious to the storm they had just unleashed. What they didn't realize was that this wasn't merely a teacher being humiliated. Every muscle, every instinct honed through years of martial arts, every ounce of discipline in her body was ready. And in the next seconds, the ordinary classroom would transform into a stage for a lesson in courage and respect none of them, or anyone watching, would ever forget. The laughter in the classroom echoed off the walls. But Ms. Jackson didn't flinch. Her breathing remained steady, her eyes scanning every movement. The bullies, thinking they had won, leaned closer, whispering insults under their breath, smirks stretching across their faces. Each taunt, each cruel gesture, was meant to break her composure, but they had no idea what they had just provoked. Time seemed to slow. Every second stretched as she assessed the situation. The students who had once dared to mock her now froze as the subtle tension in the room shifted. Her body was poised, muscles tight with controlled energy, like a spring ready to release. Every step she had taken in countless tournaments, every hour she had trained alone in silent gyms, every victory she had earned in national competitions flashed through her mind. And suddenly, she moved. It started as a blur, her foot pivoting, her arms rising in perfect balance, a textbook Taekwondo stance. The classroom that had been filled with chaos turned into a stage for precision and power. The bullies tried to react, but their confidence evaporated the moment they realized she wasn't afraid. One swung a hand toward her in mock intimidation, only to be swiftly blocked and gently but firmly thrown backward, landing flat on the polished marble floor. A gasp rippled through the room. The others froze, their laughter replaced with shock. Ms. Jackson's calm demeanor never faltered, her gaze steady and commanding. Another student tried to step forward, but she sidestepped with effortless agility, guiding him safely away while maintaining complete control of the situation. It wasn't just about defense, it was a display of discipline, control, and respect. Every movement sent a silent message. Aggression had consequences, and power without understanding was meaningless. Phones emerged from pockets, and whispers turned into murmurs as the other students captured the moment. Realizing this wasn't an ordinary scuffle, the bullies who thought they ruled Westmont Academy now faced a force they had underestimated. The classroom, once filled with mockery and fear, was now silent except for the sound of controlled breathing and the shifting weight of someone in command. Through it all, Ms. Jackson never raised her voice. She didn't need to. Her presence alone commanded respect, her actions revealing years of mastery and unwavering confidence. The students' perception of her changed instantly. The ones who had laughed and tried to humiliate her now looked with awe. Some with shame, others with disbelief. By the time the principal arrived, summoned by the commotion, the situation had already transformed. The bullies were still on the floor, the room tense and quiet, the lesson unmistakable. This wasn't about punishment or revenge. It was about demonstrating courage, teaching respect, and revealing the hidden strength behind someone who had been underestimated for far too long. And in those moments, it became clear this wasn't just a classroom incident. It was a reckoning, a story that would ripple through Westmont Academy and beyond, a tale of discipline, empowerment, and the undeniable force of someone who refused to be diminished. The room held its breath. The bullies, once loud and brazen, were now frozen, their arrogance stripped away in an instant. Ms. Jackson's eyes didn't waver, every movement measured, every breath controlled. She wasn't angry. She was focused. Every instinct honed over years of national competition guided her as she assessed each threat with calm precision. One of the students, desperate to reclaim some shred of power, lunged forward. In a blur of motion, she sidestepped, gently but decisively redirecting his momentum. The force sent him sprawling across the floor, a look of shock and disbelief etched across his face. Another tried to mock her again, a feeble attempt at intimidation, only to find himself held at arm's length, immobilized by her technique. The room erupted not with fear, but with awe. Phones clicked, capturing every second. Whispers turned into murmurs of astonishment. No one had expected this. No one had seen it coming. The teacher they had tried to humiliate wasn't just skilled, she was unstoppable. Yet, there was no cruelty in her actions, only discipline and control. Every move spoke volumes. Respect must be earned, arrogance has limits, and strength without purpose is meaningless. In that moment, it became more than a confrontation. It was a revelation. The bullies' laughter had vanished, replaced by stunned silence. Their power, built on intimidation and mockery, had crumbled in seconds. They now understood what they had overlooked. Behind the calm exterior of Ms. Jackson was a force that demanded recognition. She stood in the center of the classroom, composed, her presence filling the space like a quiet storm. Every student, even those who had never witnessed her authority before, felt the shift. The room was no longer a place of fear, it was a space where courage, skill, and dignity triumphed over mockery and aggression. And in that moment, one simple truth became undeniable: humiliation has limits, and strength, true strength, cannot be underestimated. The lesson wasn't about violence or retaliation. It was about power, control, and the quiet, unshakable confidence of someone who had worked tirelessly, endured silently, and refused to be diminished. This was the turning point. The moment that would be remembered not as a fight, but as a reckoning, a statement. A story of empowerment that would echo far beyond the walls of Westmont Academy. The classroom was quiet now. The echoes of laughter and mockery had vanished, replaced by a deep, almost reverent silence. The bullies, still recovering from the shock, could no longer look at her with the same arrogance. They had glimpsed a strength they had never anticipated, a power that extended far beyond the physical. Ms. Jackson adjusted her shirt calmly, her expression serene. Yet the room understood that the lesson had been learned. Word of the incident spread quickly through Westmont Academy. Students whispered in awe about the teacher who had transformed humiliation into a moment of undeniable authority and dignity. She hadn't sought revenge, nor had she humiliated anyone for the sake of pride. Instead, she had demonstrated that courage, skill, and self-respect could turn even the most daunting moments into a statement of empowerment. In the days that followed, the atmosphere at the school shifted. Respect replaced fear, and admiration replaced ridicule. Ms. Jackson continued her lessons with the same calm authority. But the memory of that moment lingered in the minds of students. A powerful reminder that strength is often quiet, discipline is often invisible, and true courage shows itself when no one expects it. For Ms. Jackson, The incident was a confirmation of everything she had learned over years of training. It wasn't about the trophies, the titles, or the accolades. It was about control, patience, and using her abilities responsibly. She had turned a potential moment of shame into one of empowerment, not just for herself, but as an example to every student in that room. Never underestimate someone, never dismiss resilience, and never mistake composure for weakness. And for everyone who witnessed the story through whispers, recordings, or personal retelling, the lesson was clear: humiliation is fleeting, but strength, when wielded with wisdom and integrity, leaves a lasting mark. The question lingered in the minds of all who heard it: how many times do we underestimate someone, only to realize too late that their quiet strength was always waiting to be revealed?